Through 8 games, the New York Islanders are on pace for more than 102 points this season. We've got some reasons for optimism and some reasons for concern after 8 games, plus the latest on Scott Mayfield and our weekly farm report. All that coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. And now you could hear us on SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just do a search for Locked On Islanders. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. We've got a lot to talk about on today's show, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss in a future episode, feel free to email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You could also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on Twitter, or X as they call it now, at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all season long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis. And it's always great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. All right, let's get started with this. As much as there have been some issues with this team through the first 8 games of the year, you look at the standings right now, and the Islanders are 4-2-2 after 8 games. That's 10 points in 8 games. If they continue to play at this pace, and I know 8 games out of 82 is a small sample size, but if they continue to play at this pace, they're on pace for 102.5 points over the course of the season. And that would certainly get the New York Islanders into the playoffs this year. So I think, for all of the issues that this team is having right now, and we know there are several, and we'll talk about some of them a little bit later on in the show, but they are also getting points at a rate that is good enough for this team to make the playoffs through the first 8 games. Now, a long way to go, I know, but let's see what happens. I wanted to talk today a little bit about some reasons for optimism and some reasons for concern. Reasons for optimism right now, the Islanders have 3 out of their 4 lines playing at a reasonably good rate. Obviously, you have the Nelson, Engvall, Palmieri line. That's been the best line on this team. They have been very consistent and producing points. No question about that. You have the identity line, which seems rejuvenated. Now, again, these are older players. We're only 8 games in. What happens when the schedule, the grind sets in and we get to January and February? Can they stay healthy? Can they keep it up? Those are questions we will confront down the line. But as of right now, this identity line is scoring. We've seen Cizikas, Clutterbuck, Martin all get goals and assists over the last few games, and they're doing their job with the tenacious forecheck and the solid, checking game that they are known for that helps set the tone. And then you have that top line, which is not living up to the top line billing. But right now, both Bo Horvat and Matthew Barzal seem to be at least producing offensively. Anders Lee has had some up and down moments. Again, everydayers, I still prefer to not have Lee and Horvat as line mates, but the first line not quite living up to first line numbers, but at least over the last 2 or 3 games, they have been more productive. That leaves the third line, which right now with Pajot, Holmstrom, and Wahlstrom still struggling to get production and points and even to play a little defense at times. That area is a little bit of a concern. But one player we're happy about, at least as far as the way he's gotten off to a solid start, is Kyle Palmieri. 8 games, 7 points. You extrapolate that over a season, that's about a 71-point season if he plays all 82 games. 3 goals, 7 points. One of those goals on the power play, one of those goals is a game winner, and 2 of his assists have come with the extra attacker. So Palmieri contributing to whatever success the power play has had, and it's been most definitely a mixed bag overall, but he's also just off to a solid start. 18 shots on goal in 8 games, so a little more than 2 a game, 30 shot attempts, and he's giving you 18 minutes and 2 seconds of ice time a game. He hasn't had that much ice time per game since 2018, 2019 with the Devils, and this would be the second highest minutes per game rate of his career. So far, he's also blocked 4 shots, which is solid from a player like Palmieri as a forward who is offense first, and he's recorded 7 hits. I like the way Palmieri is skating. I like the way he's playing, and this line of Nelson, Engvall, and Palmieri, you have a scorer in Nelson. Engvall adds size and speed. When I say size, not the physicality of it, but the long reach, and just a guy who it takes a little while to get around because of his height and his size. And then you have Palmieri, who is a solid secondary scorer, adds some speed. So he can certainly, he and Engvall can work a little magic together because of their speed. And all 3 of those guys, while not outstanding defensively, are responsible defensively. You put it all together and you've got what has been by far the Islanders' best line. And it's been that way since this threesome has been put together. You'd have to go way back to, what was it, about 3 or 4 games after the trade deadline when Engvall came in. So look, with Kyle Palmieri, we all know the situation. He has difficulty staying healthy. Knock wood. You want to see from Palms consistency and offense and productivity, but you also need to see him on the ice. Last year, 55 games. The year before that, 69 games. The year before that, 51. The year before that was really his last full season at 65 games, and that was the COVID-shortened 2019-2020 season where he probably played 65 out of, 67 or 68 games. So you got to have this guy stay healthy. And if you can get 60-plus points and let's say 75-plus games out of Kyle Palmieri, I'd be thrilled. We know Palmieri, like many offensive-minded players, tends to be streaky, but at the same time, he also is one of those guys who can, if he can stay healthy and provide the Islanders with consistent production, he increases this team's offensive productivity, and we all know how much this team needs that. So, reasons for optimism. We're going to start today with the Nelson, Engvall, Palmieri line, and in particular, the solid productivity we're getting so far from Kyle Palmieri. Well, we've talked a little bit about reasons for optimism, or at least a couple of them. Now we're going to turn to some reasons for concern. We're going to discuss that. Plus, for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a player who seemingly came out of nowhere to be a first-line player in the early 2000 teens. So let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got all that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could do the same thing with your business team? If you're building a roster to win the league, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. Hate waiting? Well, Indeed's U.S. data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. So visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. So let's talk some reasons for concern. And again, none of this is, oh my God, the sky is falling, because it's not. But there are some reasons for concern. And let's start with this. We're 8 games into the season. And in 3 of those 8 games, the New York Islanders have given up 2-goal leads. 3 out of the first 8 games, they have given up 2-goal leads. Now, they won some of those games, but in others, they have certainly struggled. And that is just not what you want. To get leads and then give them up is certainly counterproductive, to say the least. And you have to hope that this team figures out what they need to do in order to right that wrong. And I think they can, but you can't be giving up leads. Not playing a full 60 minutes is a real problem. And, regardless, it has been a problem, not just this year, not just last year, but really for a while. And they need to be better in that regard in order to continue to play at a playoff rate. And part of the problem is this, and it's surprising. The New York Islanders are giving up a lot of shots. Interesting article in The Athletic, and it mentions that only 2 goalies have faced more shots per game right now than Ilya Sarokin. And that's Mackenzie Blackwood of the San Jose Sharks, the only winless team in the NHL. And then Jonas Johansson of Tampa Bay. The concern to me is this. You can't wear out Ilya Sarokin this early in the year. You can't be giving up 35, 40, 41 shots on goal per game and hope that that's not going to have an effect on both of your goaltenders, really, by the time you get to January, February. Look, the Islanders are not built to win high-scoring games. They are built to shut down the opponent, limit the chances, and rely on their goalie for those times that they do make mistakes. Well, right now, the Islanders are just playing too many we're trading chances back and forth, wide open kind of games. You talk about the game against the Avalanche, the game against the Devils, the game on Monday against Detroit. You got to go back to the way the Islanders played against Arizona and the way they played against Buffalo in the season opener, even though they lost, blew a 2-0 lead in that game. Overall, they've got to get back to Islanders hockey. And if they don't, Sarokin and quite possibly Semyon Varlamov could both be exhausted by the time the calendar turns to 2024. And that means there's at least half a season left. And that is something this team just cannot afford. So I think this is all on Lane Lambert. And he has got to get this veteran team to get back on track and play their style of hockey. I'm not concerned about style points. I don't care if the Bissonnets of the world, if the broadcasters from TNT and TBS and Hockey Night in Canada, I don't care if they're excited about seeing the Islanders or not. I don't care. I want wins. I want this team to be successful. And I'm sure as Islander fans, that's what we all want. But to be successful, you've got to play your style of hockey. And too often this team has gotten away from that. Now, I promised you a Scott Mayfield update. He skated in practice again on Tuesday. So that is good. Lane Lambert saying it was really good to see him back on the ice. He was on yesterday morning as well. We're looking forward to getting him back in the lineup as soon as possible. Still don't know whether he'll be available Thursday, tomorrow, when they take on the Washington Capitals in Washington. That is not known yet, but having him in practice, full practice with the team on back-to-back days is certainly another step forward and good news for the New York Islanders. And look, let's face it. As I mentioned on the show yesterday, everydayers, not having Scott Mayfield in the lineup has hurt Adam Pelech and Ryan Pollock and Alexander Romanov. And, those guys are getting too much ice time, tiring out because the Islanders coaching staff is reluctant to give a lot of minutes to the duo of Samuel Bolduc and Sebastian Aho. And, that wears them down as well. So those are reasons for concern. Those are things that when I look at the way this team has played, do have me worried to an extent. You've got to dictate the tempo. You've got to dictate the style of play in order to win consistently in the National Hockey League. Right now, the New York Islanders aren't doing that. And having as many shots as they're allowing each game and as many shot attempts as they're allowing each game, you can get away with that for 8 games or for 4 or 5 out of 8 games. But if you don't correct that over the course of 82 games, it's going to wear down your best player, and that's Ilya Sarokin. Islanders can't let it happen, and let's hope that Lane Lambert is able to correct this issue before it blows up in the team's face. All right, we have got more to get to on today's show. We have our weekly farm report where we discuss all things Bridgeport Islanders, and we will have our Islanders birthday of the day and more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Bo Horvat could score 50 goals. The Islanders could hoist the Stanley Cup, and you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Matthew Barzal, Connor McDavid, or Alexander Ovechkin will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in any given game. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Islander fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you could start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Time now for our weekly farm report where we talk all things Bridgeport Islanders. Tough weekend for the Bridgeport Islanders. Just disappointing, to say the least. Played 2 games, both on the road, both against the Charlotte Checkers, and they came up short in both of them, losing the first game by a score of 5-2. Goals by William Dufour and Samuel Asselin. That was both of their first goals of the season, but it wasn't enough. Jakub Skarek in goal made 25 saves, making his 4th straight start. Problem is that the 5 goals went into the back of the net, and the Islanders just could not come back. Now, both goals were power plays. That was good news. And the shots were pretty even, 30-29 in favor of Charlotte, but Bridgeport just could not quite get the job done. Then in the second game last weekend, another game in Charlotte against the Checkers, and the Islanders fell 2-0. Ken Appleby was the goalie, and he made 31 saves, including a great stop on a shorthanded breakaway by Jerry Mayhew in the third period. Bridgeport killing off all 6 power plays that were against them, but Spencer Knight, 23 saves to earn the shutout, and the Islanders were 0 for 7 on the power play in a game that was full of a penalty box parade, to say the least. So, an 0-2 weekend, not what you want if you're the Bridgeport Islanders, knocks them down now to 7th, knocks them down rather in the standings to 8th place in the division, really tied for 7th. And I would say they're ahead of the Providence Bruins only because they have 2 wins and Providence has 1. But still, we're early in the season and the Islanders are looking for more consistency. The problem right now, the goal differential, -8 for the Bridgeport Islanders. And, that is something that they need to improve upon. Right now, Ruslan Iskakov leading the team, 2 goals, 8 points in 7 games, followed by Brian Pinho with 6 points, 1 goal, 5 assists. Leading defense scorer, Dennis Chalowski with a goal and 5 points through 7 games. So that is good. No player, however, on Bridgeport right now has more than 2 goals. Iskakov, McLean, Kyle McLean, and Matthew Maggio, each with 2. So I guess just like the NHL Islanders, the AHL Islanders having some issues putting pucks in the net. There are 2 games for Bridgeport this weekend as they kick off the month of October. Saturday, they are in Hershey to take on the Hershey Bears. They are the first place Hershey Bears, off to a 6-2 start. And then on Sunday, they return home for a 3:00 p.m. Eastern time matinee against the Springfield Thunderbirds. So if you want to see some great hockey action with some future Islanders and prospects, go up to Bridgeport and check it out. And you can watch both of these games, of course, on AHL TV, hoping that Bridgeport can get back on track and get back into the thick of the playoff hunt in the AHL's Atlantic Division. And again, it's pretty tightly bunched at this point. 65 games left. And again, Bridgeport kind of looking for some consistency and, good playing by Appleby, who hadn't played in 4 or 5 games. And when you consider the AHL plays mostly on the weekends, good that he was able to come in and be sharp under those circumstances. All right, time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And today is the 40th birthday of former Islanders winger Matt Moulson. Moulson, originally drafted in the 9th round by the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2003, spent 4 years at Cornell University, including a 22-goal season in just 34 games back in 04-05. Made his NHL debut for the LA Kings in 07-08, but didn't play a full season in the NHL until he joined the Islanders in 2009-2010. And he then put together 3 straight years of 30 goals or more, 30 in 09, 2010, 31 the following year, and a career high 36 in 2011-2012. He also had 69 points that year. He was dealt to the Buffalo Sabres, dealt to the Minnesota Wild, then to the Buffalo Sabres, where he finished his NHL career in 2017-2018, played in the AHL all the way through the 2021-2022 season. For his NHL career, Matty Ice, 650 games, 176 goals, 369 points, and 122 penalty minutes. Add 16 playoff games, 3 goals, 6 points. 6 of those games, 2 goals, and an assist with the New York Islanders. We go back and look at one of his better games as an Islander, December 3rd, 2009, at the Phillips Arena in Atlanta. Islanders taking on the Thrashers. Dwayne Rollison, the goalie for the Isles. Andre Pavlich in goal for Atlanta. And in this game, after the Islanders fell behind 1-0 in the first period, Matt Moulson with a hat trick. He got 2 goals in the second period, including 1 on the power play and a goal in the third period to complete the hat trick. Trent Hunter and Kyle Oposo each assisting on 2 of those goals in this game as the Islanders cruise to a 4-1 win. John Tavares with the empty net goal to clinch it, as the Islanders beat the Thrashers 4-1 in Atlanta with the hat trick for Matt Moulson. He is our Islanders birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day, everydayers. Tomorrow on the show, we'll have a full preview of the Islanders game against the Washington Capitals. Hopefully some more updates on Scott Mayfield's health and a lot more. So make sure you join us for that. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Hope everyone had a happy and safe Halloween. And of course, let's go Islanders.